How's everybody doing? We're adjusting because I know yesterday I mixed up that cleaning solution that I posted a couple times ago, a couple weeks ago, maybe even a month ago. It's cleaning vinegar, Dawn dishwashing liquid. Wow. Hey, Ramona, how you doing? David, yay! How's Chicago? Hey, Jill, how you doing? Hey, check out my, well, I can't do that. I burnt my finger the other day, guys, and it just happens to be, hey, Aunt Gail. Burnt in the middle finger. I was going to show you in my burn. And anyway, so we're going to start today because if you remember, I posted that cleaning solution a couple of weeks ago with the vinegar and the Dawn and the lemon juice and water. And it said that it's a great oven cleaner. And you know, you get all these posts on Facebook or Instagram or whatever you're using for social media. And you're like, yeah, does it really work? It looks great. Does it really work? Well, I mixed the cleaning stuff. And if you saw my posting, boring in Chicago, come on, David, you're there. Everything's happening in Chicago. If you're there, it's exciting. So I posted a picture of our dirty oven last night, and I said I was going to spray it and I was going to leave it just like the directions on the cleaning stuff say, and that it's just supposed to wipe right out. No heating, no chemicals, no smell, no anything. All right, so the big reveal, we're headed to the stove. I cleaned it this morning, and the big reveal is, does the cleaning solution work? Okay, so you guys ready? Now you can go out, you can see my post in my dirty oven. Ta-da! Look it down here. It actually worked. Yes. Now it did take a little bit of elbow grease. Not a great amount of elbow grease, but hey, Dawn, I miss you. But it did work. The cleaning solution really did work. Dawn, check this out, Dawn. See, look. It did clean it. It actually did. So that cleaning solution does really work. I was hoping it wasn't going to be as much of elbow grease as what I had to give to it, but it wasn't terrible. It really did do a pretty good job. So what are we going to make today? So that was the big reveal. What are we going to make today? I want to talk about, are you ready for this? Meatloaf. You're saying, what? Meatloaf? I want to talk about meatloaf, meatballs, hamburgers. While I was being raised from a little tiny girl, my family has this philosophy. At least my grandmother did, and my mom kind of did. My mother is an average cook. Love the woman. She's fabulous. She's an average cook, and she'd even tell you that she's an okay cook. My grandmother, as you know, was above that. But Grandma always had this philosophy: you need to have a handful of recipes in your head that aren't really recipes. They're not written down. It's not something that you have to go to. You have to have a handful of go-to dishes that you don't have to look at anything and you can just put together. There is no recipe for things like, and here are the staples that I was taught as a child: chili, basic spaghetti, like a spaghetti and meatball type of thing, basic spaghetti, meatloaf, macaroni and cheese, grilled cheese sandwiches, scrambled eggs. If you have those bases, and roast with carrots and potatoes. If you have those basic ideas or things in your repertoire that you don't have to stop, go over, rifle through your recipes, pull it up and look at it while you're making it, or that you don't have to pop up online and look for, meatloaf, you're going to be great. You can do anything if you've got a handful of things in that manner. Now, everybody does meatloaf different. You go into a restaurant and meatloaf is a regional thing. It's based on what you saw as a child, your mother or your father or your grandparents or your aunt and uncle. Everybody's is different. It's one of the most bizarre things out there. It really is. And if you have picky eaters in your house, it's even more so. Because I've seen people take and make what they call meatloaf, or even meatballs for like spaghetti. And they put great big chunks of onions and great big chunks of celery and carrots in. Then they put bread and they soak the bread in milk for 2 days, and then they put it in with the meat, and then all these array of spices. Then chop up green pepper and put it in there. And do you put the brown sugar ketchup sauce on? Hey Rhonda, yay! I love you. Thank you for making my job easy at work. They do these sauces, or ketchup, mustard, brown sugar. You have to put that on. You have to do barbecue sauce, and it's a great big debate. And then you think about, are you gluten-free, dairy-free? How can you make meatloaf more exciting? I had a friend. This is hilarious. You're gonna love this. She was trying to make her meatloaf more exciting because her husband was getting a little bored with the meals. So here's what she did. You're gonna love this. She would take meatloaf. When she would do meatloaf, she did meatloaf once a week. She would make it into, hey Tammy, it's nice to see you. Welcome. You'll have to go back and check out the big reveal on did the cleaning solution work in the oven. It went great, by the way. Oh, and Rhonda, yes, with the tin foil on the bottom of the stove. However, on the bottom, just like Lori had said, they really don't recommend it. But I got this really cool thing. What we normally do to keep the stove clean is we line the rack with tin foil and not on the bottom of the oven. But I have been finding these sheets. Of course, you can tell I use mine. It's like it's almost like a metal paper, and I found mine at Aldi's, and it's in a roll, and I just cut it to fit on the bottom, and I put it on the very bottom rack, and as you can see, it does its duty. It's awesome. Mike, it's your first time here. Hey, are the cats watching? I hope so. So anyway, back to meatloaf. Gluten-free, dairy-free, all this other stuff. The whole big thing about meatloaf is ground meat, whether it's beef, pork, chicken, turkey, whatever it is, a ground meat type of thing. Okay, then you take that, so you've got a meat substance. I don't know how it works with tofu. I haven't done a lot of cooking with tofu, to be quite honest with you. And then, Jay's glad about that. He's not a tofu lover at all. So then you take your ground meat, and then it has like an egg to help bind it. And normally, even with the meatballs you've got, if you do like a meatball type of thing, there's a bread substance to kind of bind it together. Most recipes you're going to see, some take that bread and they combine it with soak it in milk and different things on that nature. So you've got a meat, you've got an eggy type of thing, and you've got a binder to help with that. Hey Debbie, good to see you. Oh, and Debbie, 2 Debbies in a row. I'm so excited about that. See, yeah, Mike, your mom would make an amazing meatloaf. Everybody has got, meatloaf is it's such a wonderful thing. It's like a big hug to a person. And you can take a meatloaf recipe and you can make it into meatballs. And you can have barbecue meatballs, spaghetti and meatballs, any kind of thing on that order. And then you can take the same thing and you can make hamburgers out of it and eat it as like a hamburger on a bun. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about meatloaf. And I'm doing that for multiple reasons because it's such a diverse thing. And if you've got the basics of a meatloaf, you can do anything. You can put anything together. But anyway, back to the story of my friend who was trying to make your husband happy with spicing up the meatloaf, so to speak. she would, when she would do it, she would sculpt it into things. Okay, I'm serious. She made a Godzilla profile at one time, and she made it was the most hilarious thing ever. She went in, she made, okay, so I want to be nice about this. She made some, she made a profile of a breast for him, okay? So she would make these sculptures for her hamburger, for her meatloaf, and then she would bake them, and he thought it was great. It was really fun, and especially when she did the, you know, but then one week, she didn't make, that, but she made a male appendage. We'll just say that, okay? If you're all with me, you know what I'm talking about. He refused to eat the meatloaf because it was in that shape. He would not eat the meatloaf. She had a whole meatloaf he wouldn't touch. It's so funny. And this was, I mean, a long time ago, but I still think of that every time I'm putting a meatloaf together. I'm like, oh, maybe I should make a shape. No, I don't think I'll make a shape because maybe Jay won't eat it. But I'm a picky eater. So when I take a look at all the things that people put into meatloaf, I don't get excited about this. I have found, here's what I have found. I like just basic meat and a few seasonings and a good breadcrumb or substitute for that binder, and that's it. Really simple, because any picky eater will eat that. Now, what I have found, if you like onion, awesome, perfect, it's wonderful to have in there. If you have a picky eater and you're cooking a meatloaf and you know a picky eater is going to be around and you want to get that onion in there, take your onion and put it either in your blender, just raw, toss it in the blender in chunks or whatever, big chunks, or your food processor, puree it. Then mix that in with your beef or your chicken or your turkey or whatever ground meat you are working with this. I've never had a lot of great success with meatloaf or meatballs or burgers with ground turkey. Now I have a girlfriend, that's all she uses is ground turkey. And she does really great with it. I just never have gotten it. Now I've had hers and it's great. I've tried to do it and I have to mix it with something because it tastes nasty. Frankly, it's not. I just don't do well with it. But I love to use for my bread type thing, if I'm not trying to be gluten-free and I'm not trying to watch my carbs and all that other kind of things, I like Townhouse crackers or a Ritz cracker. I think it makes the most flavorful meatloaf ever. Yes, onion soup. If you look at any kind of recipes that are actually written down for meatloaf, you will notice for about 1.5 pounds or a pound of meat, ground meat, they'll recommend 1 onion or 1 package or 2 packages of onion soup mix. And that is a great way to do it. I'm not a huge onion soup fan person. I have used it in a lot of different things and I've never had that much success. Now other people have great success with it, but it is a great way to get that onion in there too, if you really like onion. But puree it too. Throw a couple cloves of garlic in there. And then if you do soak, if you're a bread soaker when you go to do this, because if you've pureed your onion, you're going to be a little bit more watery, just add a little bit more breadcrumb or pull back on the milk that you soak your bread in. That's all, because you're going to have a little bit more. You want to do something gluten-free, you can still do meatloaf, even if you're gluten-free. And there's several ways to do it. One of the ways is gluten-free pretzels. These are the most delicious gluten-free pretzel Jay and I have ever found. We love it. I have made cheesecake crust out of this. It's fabulous. This brand, you can see the brand. There you go. They're wonderful. Use them in the meatloaf. Take a handful of these. They're gluten-free. Just crunch them up like you would do if you use saltine crackers. My mom raised us on plain old saltine crackers in meatloaf. I'm not a big fan. Let's put some flavor into something, people. Come on. But pretzels, gluten-free pretzels is a great way, if you're gluten-free, to get that bread type thing in there. The other thing, which is real fun, okay, you guys gotta check this out. Gluten-free. Now we're just talking about gluten-free real quick. This looks like a Cheez-It, but it's not a Cheez-It. It is a gluten-free Cheez-It. It's special. This is, the brand is Lance, and this is the best gluten-free cracker I have found. It is delicious. I made a meatloaf with these. It was, we didn't have any leftovers. We sat and we ate the whole darn meatloaf. It was so good. That cheese flavor in there, being gluten-free, it was absolutely, bar none, wonderful. Okay. Now, the other ideas too is if you don't want to do the cracker or something and you can only have a little bit of carb, a wonderful thing to do is take a half a cup of cooked brown rice. And a half a cup of cooked brown rice is really real minimal on all those kind of starchy things that you're watching, is depending on your diet. Put a half a cup of cooked brown rice in your food processor. Throw your onion in there if you want. And go ahead and blitz that down. And use that as a binder instead of any kind of bread or any type of anything else. You want a wild one? Take a bag of Doritos. You crunch that up and throw that in your meatloaf. It's phenomenal. Very fun stuff. Great ways to think about meatloaf. There are a zillion recipes out there, of course. I do tend to like to put carrots in mine, but what I'll do is I'll pre-cook the carrots, I'll roast them, and then dice them up into itty-bitty tiny pieces and mix that in with the meatloaf. It's great, especially if like you're doing it for like a meatball for like spaghetti. It's real fun to do that. You can make up a meatloaf and you can take that same thing, you make a meatloaf and go, oh, what am I going to do with this? Something happened and I got to run, I can't cook it. You can freeze a raw meatloaf and just throw it in the oven later. You really can. You can make a meatloaf, you can make a huge batch, form a meatloaf, you throw that in the oven, and then you can take the other part of the meatloaf mixture, excuse me, and you can form that into meatballs and freeze them. And then you've got your meatballs later. You don't have to run to the store and buy a bag of frozen processed meatballs. Next time you make meatloaf, make a double batch, freeze some into meatball form, and there you go. It really is that simple. Real fun stuff too when you're looking at spices for meatloaf. Throw in a pack of taco sauce as seasoning. Again, because if you're using things like pretzels or seasoned packets, watch your sodium. Hi, Lynette, birthday girl. Good to see you. We're talking about meatloaf. And yes, my oven did come out clean. You'll have to check it out at the beginning of the thing, the big reveal. People can think with meatloaf, they put everything but the kitchen sink in there. Again, when I'm working with meatloaf, my rule of thumb is if I'm doing a pound to a pound and a half of ground meat, whatever kind of meat it is, I use 1 egg and typically 1 sleeve of crackers. Again, here we are. Yes, see, celery, you bet you. You're going to see in the one that I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to mix one up and then I'm going to let you guys go. Let me talk about a few more things. I got 1 sleeve of Ritz crackers. I really think that using a cracker like that instead of a saltine, if you're a saltine person, it's just more flavorful. I have a pound and a half of beef. And I am not a person who has ever believed in using a spoon to mix meatloaf. Sorry if you are. I understand. But I believe that meatloaf should be mixed with the best kitchen utensil God gave us, and that's our hands. All right, there we go. And I just typically, for a pound, pound and a half, I use 1 egg. Now, depending if you're trying to stretch things or if you get more bready type stuff in there, you might want 2 eggs. But I just do 1 in my normal pound to pound and a half meat. Again, if you're wanting to watch your fat, you can try the lesser stuff. Yes, never overmix. You guys listen to Aunt Gail. She's right. Because it gets kind of tough. You want it more unctuous. When it's not overmixed, it's much more unctuous. Isn't that a great word, unctuous? I love it. When I do meatloaf, just like my friend Debbie said, she says she likes celery in hers. I have this wonderful organic celery salt. I love it. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that. And because I am going to add a few other things, I'm not going to go too overboard. And again, I am also going to cut back on any other salt I put in because this is celery salt. Just like if you add garlic and you're adding garlic salt, you're not going to add any more salt. I mean, because this is garlic powder. Because I like garlic. I love garlic. But sometimes I don't like textures. Like I said, I am a picky eater. And I love the flavor of onion. But again, I don't like texture. So I'm going to add quite a bit of onion powder. Now, when I was raised, this was meatloaf other than saltine crackers, not the fancy Ritz. And then Mother would put ketchup in it. And that was it. That's how she made meatloaf. And I love it. Yeah, see, you use green pepper. I don't like green pepper at all. But what's really fun, again, you've got this, yeah, I know I'm picky. You got this great meatloaf. Make this whole big batch because you can take this same mixture and you can stuff peppers. You can actually lay it out flat and fill this with something. You can fill it with cheese. The best thing about meatloaf is wrap it in bacon. Right, Mike? You were there. Bacon wrapped meatloaf. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I'm going to throw a little bit of paprika in here. I like paprika, but it's just going to be a little bit. Like I said, I've seen people make meatloaf and they put absolutely everything in the jar in there. It is hilarious. So some pepper. And I'm going to throw some of this in because I love chipotle. It's just a little bit of this hot sauce, but it's a chipotle flavor. It's fabulous. I've been using this more and more. I'm just going to put a couple dashes in there. All right. What's real fun, of course, is barbecue sauce. I know, but I'm going to put ketchup in it. Barbecue sauce is real fun. You can make any kind of ethnic flavored meatloaf out there. Truly. Throw in some sun-dried tomatoes. Throw in some thyme. Throw in some basil. Like I said, mix it with your hands. It's just the best thing. Oh, I forgot to put now my mother never did this. I like to use Worcestershire sauce. I use Worcestershire sauce in a lot of things. Things people wouldn't really normally put it in. But it's got so much flavor. So many different things spices you don't have in your everyday cupboard. But if you've got Worcestershire sauce, you're all set. And that's pretty much it. Like Aunt Gail said, don't overmix it. Hey, Julie. I'm going to get I'll have to wash the bottle after I'm done. And I just throw a couple shakes in there. Soy sauce, too, is real fun to put in meatloaf, just for the fun of it. It brings something to the party, so to speak. But you can freeze this in any format. Again, I have dirty hands and I'm going in my cupboard, so I'll have to wash the cupboard door, Jay. You'll have to remember that. All right, I'm out of spray. Add it to the list. I love ordering my groceries online. I love picking them up. It's so much fun. Yeah, see, A lot of people don't put ketchup in, but you do the brown sugar glaze, sure. Um, all right, I'm just gonna do a little extra mix because I put that Worcestershire in there. But you can, and I'm not gonna make shapes. Though it's really funny. If you missed the shape story, you're gonna want to go back. I had a girlfriend who would do shapes to make the meatloaf a little more exciting for her husband. You'll have to get that story at the beginning. It's hilarious. Now, what was real fun, I just did a meatloaf a couple weeks ago with carrots, and I put them in muffin tins. I put it in little muffin tins, and I baked them like that. It was fabulous. Well, hello there, Ms. Brown. So anyway, yeah, and I had never done meatloaves in the muffin tins before. I was always kind of nervous that the fat would cook over it, and like make a mess of my stove. And as you've seen, I don't always like to clean my stove. But it actually did really well. But when you take them out, if you do it in the muffin pan, and when you take it out of the oven, pull them out of the cup right away so it doesn't reabsorb the fat. That'll help cut down the fat. Now, I was raised, everybody does again, meatloaf is the weirdest thing. Everybody's got how they were taught as a kid or what they saw as a kid. Some people put it in a bread pan and they bake it in that. I was raised, check this out. You make a tube, you just run it through the cake pan, and then my mom always would do this, since it's Mother's Day weekend, right? My mom would make this channel. She would make this channel. Now, this is the best part of meatloaf, in my opinion. Just like you guys are talking about with the sauce. This is how my mom raised us kids. All right, she would make this tube. She'd make a channel down the middle of her meatloaf, like that. You can see I got this little channel action going. And then she would just fill the channel with ketchup. She wouldn't add anything to the ketchup or anything. She would just throw it in there and toss it in the oven. And even though she didn't add sugar to it, because when it baked, when the ketchup baked, it would get extra sweet. A meatloaf is hilarious. You just got to make a meatloaf. If you've never made your own meatloaf, or if you've never even tried to make meatballs, just throw some crackers and some ground meat, no matter what it is, and throw some seasoning and give it a try. It's so much fun because you never know what's going to happen. If you don't like how it comes out, meatloaf is the most forgiving thing you'll ever make. And this is why. If you don't like it, now I'm going to wash this cupboard off, otherwise I'm going to end up forgetting. And if you just joined us and you don't know why I'm washing that off, you'll have to watch. It's hilarious. Anyway, you don't like how the meatloaf came out, don't worry. Set it aside the next day. Just chop it up, throw it in a pan, make spaghetti sauce out of it. Truly, it won't go to waste. Even if you don't like it as meatloaf, do that with it. It's easy enough. Throw it in the pan, throw a little bit of water in it if you want. Throw a packet of taco seasoning in. You got yourself taco meat. Nobody needs to know, especially if you have picky eaters in your house, that was the meatloaf from the night before that they didn't like. They'll never know. Seriously, they'll never know. Just throw a can of salsa in it and, some tortillas and cheese. Seriously, they won't know it was the meatloaf they didn't like the night before. I love meatloaf because you can do that stuff. Not only, you can make sandwiches and all that other fun stuff, but this is what my mother would do. She would just squirt ketchup down the center and throw that into the oven. That's it. Now, meatloaf, depending on the shape and how you do your meatloaf, if you put it in, you scrunch it all in a bread pan, it's going to take longer. You're going to probably cook that sucker for an hour maybe. When you do it more in a smaller shape, if you will, it's probably going to take 40 to 45 minutes. It really depends. And also depends on, did you use ground turkey? Did you use ground chicken? Did you use ground pork? What did you do? Did you wrap it in bacon? If you wrap it in bacon, you're going to want to cook it a little bit longer because obviously it takes a while to get through that fat of the bacon. But I'll tell you what, if you've never wrapped a meatloaf in bacon, you're missing it. It's really, really good. So how long have I gone here? I have gone 30 minutes almost. So I'm going to throw this, and I roast mine at 350. And if you're really quick and you can see that far away, you'll notice how clean my oven is. And I'm just going to pop this puppy here. And I'm going to throw my paper in. I love these things. My sister-in-law Jill, you saw it just online right there. She uses the same paper type thing, and it really is cool. And it's better than taking my tinfoil and wrapping my sheet around the grate, and then that rips, and this stuff is really strong, so it's awesome. But really, play with meatloaf. Don't let it intimidate you. And make a big batch of meatloaf, and then go ahead and make it into meatballs and put that in the freezer, and then you've got yourself a meal for another night, you know, later down the road. Don't, it's not something, put your personality into it. It's not anything you ever have to worry about. So that, in a nutshell, is meatloaf. And remember, you can substitute gluten-free things in there. Another thing that people use is oatmeal. Don't cook it or don't do anything like that. Don't use flavored brown sugar, apple sauce, oatmeal, but just old-fashioned oats, just throw that in there. That works really good. I've used ground almond flour instead of anything else, and that works just great too. It actually helps even keep it moister. You can make meatloaf on whatever kind of diet you are on. So with that, everybody, I got to tell you, I love you. I've had a great time. It's been real fun. And that cleaning solution does seem to work pretty well. So you have a wonderful weekend. And Jay launches in like 30 minutes. Bye, everybody. Oh, yeah, garlicky croutons are awesome. Lynette is correct. I've done that as well. And, of course, you can get gluten-free ones, too. Stale bread, of course, obviously, duh. But, yeah, play with it, you guys. Anything. Especially in today's world where you don't have everything you're used to having. Just grab something, throw it in there. You don't have ketchup and you want ketchup? Tomato paste. Throw a teaspoon of tomato paste in there. It's awesome. You'll love it. It's great. So there's so many recipes. You add canned soup and all that other kind of stuff. Keep it simple. That way you can morph it into something else later. I love you guys. Bye.